And gentlemen, on behalf of AFCEA International, welcome to TechNet Cyber 2025. Before we begin the program, may I please have your attention for a few brief administrative remarks. Throughout the week, questions for our speakers in this keynote space will be taken electronically. You can email or text your questions to askmetncyber@gmail.com. Questions in the theater sessions and other meeting rooms will be taken via audience microphones. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to download the free TechNet Cyber mobile app supported by Aqua Security. This app will give you all of the program information right at your fingertips. Signal Magazine will be blogging throughout the week, and the reports will be available on the Signal website. If you don't have Signal bookmarked, just go to www.fca.org and you'll find the link. Additionally, recordings and presentations from the week's sessions that are authorized for release will be available after the event on the AFCEA website and on the AFCEA YouTube channel. 39 conference sessions have been reviewed by CompTIA, GIAC, and CertNexus and have been determined to support continuing education requirements for certification maintenance. Note that attendance documentation is a benefit of AFCEA membership. If you are a member and wish to have your attendance at these sessions documented, you must stay for the entire session and scan your badge at the iPad located at the back of the session when it concludes. Note that sessions must run at least 60 minutes to qualify. If a session is going short, be sure to ask questions of the speaker so that it runs the full length. If you're not an AFCEA member, join today at booth 2933. AFCEA is proud to support Fisher House with donations made on behalf of our speakers and panel members. Fisher House's work with families in our military community continues to serve important needs. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please rise for the playing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Now, please welcome to the stage Colonel Mike Black, U.S. Air Force retired, to give an invocation for TechNet Cyber.
All right, good morning. I know some of you are wondering, is this the same guy that did MC Hammer across the stage 2 years ago, and now he's giving our invocation? I'm versatile, I have a lot of skills. So, before I get started this morning, I want to issue a challenge to everybody that's in here. I challenge you to meet 5 people that you don't know. Introduce yourself to them and find out where that synergy might be. They may be a government, industry, or academia person. It may be a colleague, it may be somebody that you know that knows somebody. But I challenge you to meet 5 people. And I'm telling you that that task is easy because I've already done that. I met several people yesterday, including 2 40 and under 40 winners Senior Airman Joaquin Inugarwe and his wife, Vinay. I met Jessica DePelo and her mom, Dawn. And then this morning in the elevator, I met Master Sergeant James Adkins, who's in from Fort Huachuca, part of the DISA team out there. So I challenge you to meet 5 people. And I can be one of your 5 if you want to find me and I don't know you and introduce yourself to me. Let's make that happen. Now, while we all come from different places around the globe, I'm confident that we can all agree that we have much to be thankful for. And it's in these experiences that our nation and our allied partners are so awesome and so powerful. So I ask you to please bow your heads with me according to your faith or your spiritual experience, or just with the reverent posture, attitude of gratitude, and hearts filled with friendship as I offer these small words and short words of prayer. And I say, good morning, friends, both new and known. Together, not apart, we've grown. In the halls of thought, with minds aligned, a future forged by the best combined. From government, industry, and schools, we gather here to share tools, where wisdom, vision, and insight help keep our nation's systems right. This widely attended gathering space brings trusted minds from every place. We meet with honor, firm and proud, to build new strength within the cloud. With synergy and shared foundation, we drive secure innovation. Zero Trust and SWIFT are in play, securing freedom in a digital way. Let the ethical thought lead all that we do. With principles strong and purpose true, may every choice and every plan uplift the cause and strengthen all we can. We thank you for this moment here, for colleagues, missions held so dear, for every heart that dares to lead and plants tomorrow's vital seed. For those who guard in cyber's fight, who serve in silence day and night, we offer thanks, respect, and grace. Their courage shapes a safer place. May courage, truth, and vision shine as we press forward by design. So bless this time, this noble drive at TechNet Cyber 2025.
Now, please join me in welcome to the stage Brigadier General Paul Fredenberg, U.S. Army retired, Executive Vice President, AFCEA International.
Walk-up music. We're going to keep it lively this week, as you can tell by our opening prayer. Where'd you go, Mike? Oh, that was awesome. Hey, just a side note. Most of our walk-up music throughout the week has some connection to the Charm City or Maryland at large. So you can see if you can how good you are at the music bingo that we're going to have, the walk-up bingo. So keep your cards going and try to guess what the connections are. Now, we're going to take a moment and we're going to begin TechNet Cyber because I can't think of another better way to begin it, but by acknowledging some truly outstanding leaders. And those are the recipients of the 2025 St. Isidore Award, gold medallion level. This award recognizes those who have rendered conspicuous, long-term service and significant contributions to the cyber mission at the national level. Recipients have so singularly distinguished themselves as contributors to the cyber mission that they have very few peers. At this time, I would like to invite AFCEA's President and CEO, Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence, U.S. Army retired, Mr. Christopher Barnhurst, DISA's Deputy Director, and Brigadier General Heather Blackwell, Joint Force Headquarters DODIN Deputy Commander, to join me here on the stage. You will be able to see this year's winners on the screens to the sides of the stage. You can find more information on the St. Isidore Award and a complete list of the winners in all categories by clicking on the Awards tab and then the Cyber Awards at the AFCEA website. Now, we are fortunate today to have one of our winners here in person. And at this time, I'd like to ask Colonel John Goodman, U.S. Air Force Cyberspace Wing's Director of Civil Engineering and Cyberspace Systems of the 38th Cyberspace Engineering Installation Group, to join us on the stage. The St. Isidore Award was founded in 2011, shortly after the establishment of Army Cyber Command, to recognize superior cyber performers. And through agreement with the first commanding general of Army Cyber Command and AFCEA International, an award was conceived to recognize outstanding performance within the cyber workforce. Today, in line with that initial vision, the St. Isidore Medal is awarded across the entirety of U.S. Cyber Command and the Joint Services. The award is named for the St. Isidore of Seville, who lived from 560 to 636 AD. And I know what you're asking. There was no internet or cyberspace at that time. But he is considered the last scholar of the ancient world and widely called the patron saint of the internet. The award consists of 3 levels, the highest of which is the gold medallion. Now, Colonel John Goodman served as the Director of Civil Engineering and Cyberspace Systems for the 688th Cyberspace Wing and was dual-hatted as commander of the Air Force's sole cyberspace engineering installation group, leading 4 geographically separated squadrons and executing strategic objectives to extend and defend the $4.2 billion enterprise network. He directed key modernization efforts for U.S. INDOPACOM and EUCOM, enhancing the Pacific AOR battlespace and securing over 1.5 million devices across 2 combatant commands. His leadership led to a cybersecurity service provider gold standard rating. A cyber trailblazer, Colonel Goodman founded the Department of the Air Force's first Cyber Operations Readiness Assessment Team, establishing a benchmark for inspections now recognized across U.S. Cyber Command. Thank you, Colonel Goodman, for your service, your leadership, dedication to the mission of protecting America's national security. Please join me in welcoming AFCEA's President and CEO, Susan Lawrence, to the podium to officially kick off TechNet Cyber 2025.
Yes, the great state of Maryland, the charm state, and Baltimore is part of the world. So welcome everybody from around the world for traveling in here. And during these challenging times with uncertainty, we appreciate your commitment to move this mission forward. So thank you so much. And it is great to be back here in Baltimore as we started that. To Colonel Goodman, again, congratulations on your award. Thank you so much. So as we know, this conference always brings together industry, academia, our partners in government and the military to identify the threats that are facing us today, to work through these challenging problems as a team as we go forward, and to look at what technology gaps out there do we need to be looking at to ensure national security and what we need to be doing to move forward. We appreciate we are the Association of Professional IT, Cyber, Intelligence, and Global Security Communities, because we want to serve those who serve. And it is such a great mission we have. And I'm extremely grateful to our partners who have worked diligently this year to bring this together. United States Cyber Command, NSA, the Department of Defense Chief Information Office, DISA, and Joint Force Headquarters, DODIN, the Department of Homeland Security, and CISA, who all work tirelessly on our agenda, our speakers, and the message that we wanted to bring forward. So together, we are going to find those solutions, and we are going to provide the best opportunities for our warfighters who are out there on point at the tactical edge and give them what they need to win any conflict that we may have to be in. And that also includes our support to our first responders, Homeland Security personnel, and the intelligence community. As recent conflicts have shown us, cyber capabilities are absolutely key and oftentimes are used at phase 0 before anything happens. And we've seen that over and over as we look forward. And virtually every system, every weapon system, every vehicle, every soldier, airman, Marine, Coast Guard, Navy, sailors are out there, and they're on point, delivering these system capabilities in that area. TechNet Cyber helps further the goals and objectives of the government by leveraging the private and public sector to find fast-track solutions. And we are going to see more and more public and private partnerships in the future. It is going to be one team as we go forward. We know if there's any serious conflict inside of the cyber environment, we're going to go to that conflict with our industry partners. That is a must, and that's what we're working on now as we look to outpace our adversaries in the information and cyber domains. Our conference theme, Empowering the Warfighter, Innovate, Integrate, and Dominate. We're going to look across the entire digital landscape as we look at these solutions and have these discussions this week in looking at what do we need to change, what do we need to reprioritize, and what is our advice back to our leadership in the government as to what we need to do next. We're very proud of our continuing education program, which you heard about from our announcers at the beginning. We know that you all are critical to us, and we have to provide the training, the continuing education for you as an opportunity to stay up to the latest news and the technologies that are out there, and that's what we're going to do. So if you're a member of AFCEA, we do this for you automatically. If you're not a member of AFCEA, please go to booth 2933 and join today. And my team down there are happy to talk to you about the many benefits of being a member of AFCEA, this great professional organization that we are. And the one area that we're going to hear about again this week, you can't talk about cyber without talking about the workforce and the needs there as we continue to build that workforce into a vibrant, knowledgeable force. And we are developing strong cyber workforce, but we've got to start young. We know that. We did over $2 million in scholarship for our young upcoming professionals. Thank you. Thank you. And even more, and we got a great word yesterday from one of our fabulous sponsors that are supporting us in teachers' grants. And I tell you, when you see those films come back about what those young students are doing, we are in good hands with our young that are working in these areas. It's amazing what they're doing. And so with that, I can't ever get off the stage without talking about our industry partners. We cannot do what we do without you. And we have over 200 of you here today as exhibitors and supporting partners. And we know it was tough. It was the word uncertainty as to the way ahead. You committed. Not only did you commit, but you stayed on the team as we went forward. So you see the many logos on the screen, but please join me in a round of applause for our supporting partners and our exhibitors. Thank you. And we will all be out on the floor. We've left a lot of time for you to get out there and see those new technologies and what industry is delivering to our men and women who serve. And as you explore your new, renewed membership benefits, please check out the upcoming calendar. We got a busy year ahead of us. I want to highlight TechNet Emergence, which is going to be in Reston, Virginia on July 15th and 16th. And that's where we're going to address national innovation strategy, delve into advanced communications technology and immersive technology, trusted AI and autonomy, advanced computing and human-machine interfaces, cybersecurity and data management, and many other emerging technology. It is going to be a great gathering of folks. So please, we've got room yet for you to still sign up. Please join us there. On a non-cyber related note, I'd like to highlight the 3rd annual Education Foundation Golf Tournament on September 29th at the Army-Navy Country Club. This is a can't miss. Every dollar that is raised there goes to our STEM education programs, so we'd love to see you there. The FCA team thanks all of you for joining us, and it is our hope that you have a successful week here in Baltimore. If you need anything, please go to our AFCEA booth, booth number 2933, or go to our operations office in room 327 if we can assist you in any way. So it is now my distinct pleasure to introduce our opening speakers, Mr. Christopher Barnhurst and Brigadier General Heather Blackwell. Christopher Barnhurst is DISA's Deputy Director, and in this position, he supports the Director in leading and overseeing the operations of agencies with a focus on delivering efficient and effective information technology, services, and solutions that support more than 200,000 warfighters in 150 different countries. They are truly global. Prior to becoming Deputy Director, he served as the DISA's Chief Financial Officer and Comptroller, providing executive leadership and oversight for the formulation and execution of the agency's budget. Mr. Barnhurst was appointed to the Senior Executive Service in 2017. He received a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance from Elon University in 2007, and is a level 3 certified DOD financial manager. Brigadier General Heather Blackwell is the Deputy Commander of the Joint Forces Headquarters, Department of Defense Information Network. As JAF HQ DODIN Deputy Commander, she leads command and control of the DODIN operations and defensive cyberspace operations, internal defense measures synchronizing DODIN defense actions, and synthesizing global intelligence sharing to deter adversary attacks to enable power projection, freedom of action, and mission assurance across all our warfighter domains. General Blackwell graduated from the Air Force Academy in 1997 and has a master's degree from Hawaii Pacific University and the College of William and Mary. Sir, ma'am, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Please join me in welcoming our opening keynote.
Good morning, everyone. All right. So I can honestly tell you that I did not think I would ever stand here as the opening speaker for AFCEA TechNet with a Mike Tyson quote. But if you've got that on your bingo card, go and check that one off.
Check it off.
Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face, right? Famous Mike Tyson quote. To pull back the curtain a little bit, for those of you, this might be your first time at AFCEA, or who aren't necessarily aware, the agency, DISA, goes through quite a process in order to prepare for this event, right? We obviously have our strong partnership with AFCEA. But there's a lot of work in the months leading up to this to talk about the key themes that we want to hit on, who's going to communicate those themes, how we want to set up theater sessions, right, so that we make this as an effective forum for all of you, our industry partners, and others throughout the DoD community. And in this case, we did all of that, and then life happened, right? So that's the reason you don't see General Stanton sitting here at this moment. General Blackwell and I are going to try to ably call an audible and fill in. But I had a chance to speak with him last night, and I will share with you that you could tell in his voice how much he desperately wanted to be here for this moment today, and we hope that he's still able to make it a little bit later in the session this week with all of you. But I told him what he so often tells the men and women on the DISA leadership team, the JFHQ DODIN leadership team, our broader agency, we're a team, right? So boss, we've got your back. Right, we'll jump in and handle it. But that team extends to all of you guys, right? One of the first things he would say to you is, if you contract with DISA, you're on the team. It's a partnership, and we'll get into that a little bit in some of our back and forth here in a minute going forward. So with that, I wanted to start out with kind of a look backwards for a hot minute. A few years ago, at this very forum, DISA made a little bit of news, and we announced this effort that we called and branded Thunderdome, right? And we said, we're going to fundamentally shift the way that we as DISA execute cyber defense within the Department of Defense. And we described wanting to move from a defense in depth kind of architecture where we defend the perimeter, we defend the midpoint, we defend the endpoint. But at the time we said a lot of those defenses aren't well integrated. We're not using that data to make effective decisions in the way we need to. And we all know we need to move to this thing called a zero trust architecture. And in doing that, we described an integrated set of capabilities that would drive foundational change for how we defend our environment and how we deliver secured network services to the department. Fast forward to right now, and makes me very proud of our agency to be able to announce that after undergoing red team, DODIN, third-party testing, that zero trust architecture, which is made up of an integrated suite of dozens of products provided by all of you, successfully hit on 152 of 152 key zero trust activities as articulated by the CIO's office in the department. That is a heck of an accomplishment.
That's a big deal. I mean, you can smile when you say that. That's a huge deal.
That is a huge deal.
Yeah.
That is a huge deal. And the key point in all of that is we went from a concept on a whiteboard, quite literally, to articulating that concept, that vision, to this kind of a forum, right? To then partnering with a number of industry partners in the room here, right? Like I said, dozens of products that are integrated into that design. And that is now real, and it's real 2 years ahead of when the DoD CIO said it has to be real for the department. That, to me, is the power of this kind of forum and what we can do when we work together as a team. So for today's discussion, I want to pivot off that a little bit because while that Thunderdome architecture is doing great things for DISA, for our DoDNet customers, right, for folks like the US Coast Guard and others who we've deployed the architecture for in the department, we, DISA, are just one of 45 what we call DAOs, right, or DODIN areas of operation within the department. And so while that's great that we apply that architecture to our terrain, right, and DISA is one of the larger ones, right, so it's a good chunk of the problem set, each one of those 45 DAOs represents a potential vector of attack for an adversary. The potential for compromise, right? And so having General Blackwell up here for us to talk a little bit about what that means from a JFHQ DODIN, from a cyber command perspective, right, versus what DISA brings to the fight as a combat support agency, we thought would be very helpful and important to kind of expose to the audience. So with that, you hear the department talk a lot about one team, one fight, right? Miss Arrington's going to be here tomorrow. I've been through it feels like dozens of meetings where she opens the meeting with a bunch of the service CIOs in the room and she says, one team, one fight, right? Get on the same page. With DISA and JFHQ DODIN, you hear the same from General Stanton, right? He's the only one who wears both hats, but his message to us has been consistent that we are on the same team and the synergies that we get are critical. That said, there are key differences in the authorities and the mission sets that both JFHQ DODIN as part of US Cyber Command and DISA perform. And so, General Blackwell, I wondered if you could start with maybe highlighting some of those differences. Certainly I'll jump in, and then we'll talk a little bit about where there's synergy to kind of help out the audience a little bit.
Yeah, I love that question because I get that a lot. People will say, hey, General Blackwell, how's it working at DISA? And I want to say, oh, I don't work at DISA. I work at Joint Force Headquarters DODIN, right? I'm the Deputy Commander for Joint Force Headquarters DODIN. And as Mr. Barnhurst mentioned, our boss is dual-hatted as the DISA Director and the Commander of Joint Force Headquarters DODIN. The biggest difference, if I had to keep it succinct, is DISA provides the services. I do command and control across all of those 45 DODIN areas of operation that Mr. Barnhurst mentioned. And when we think of those 45 DAOs, remember that the DODIN is the third largest network in the world. And that is behind China and the United States. And Joint Force Headquarters DODIN's task is to do command and control for security, operations, and defensive measures across that massive network. I can't do that all in one place, and it's not all one person. So we've divided the DODIN up into 45 different areas of operation, spanning from DISA to the Army, Air Force, and even DECA, NRO, et cetera. So our job is to see to across all of those 45 DAOs to make sure that we have consistent defensive actions across the DODIN. I think that C2 piece is probably one of the biggest differences between our two organizations.
I think so, and I would add to that the authorities and reporting chains associated with that, right? So when General Stanton has his JFHQ DODIN hat on under US Cyber Command, he's reporting up through the commander of US Cyber Command, but he has what's called DACO, right? Directive Authority for Cyberspace Operations. So in that hat, he can actually direct all 45, to your point on C2, of those areas of operations across the DODIN. In his DISA hat, he does not have that same authority, right? He's focused on building, operating, sustaining the infrastructure that makes up DAO DISA and that we provide to support the rest of the department in key missions. But those are two sort of very different sets of authorities. But as I always like to say, it's fun because when he issues that directive authority in his JFHQ DODIN hat, he's also directing himself as the director of DISA, which gives a little added emphasis for us on the DISA team to go ahead and deliver, so we set an example, ideally for the rest of the department, about how to get something done.
But I think even that, though, identifies the power of his dual hat, right? Because he will never issue that directive out to those 45 DAOs if it doesn't make sense for DISA. So we actually sometimes use DISA as a little bit of an experiment to say, I'm going to task people to do this. DISA, can you do it? And if not, then maybe I need to change how I do that tasking. So having him there to look at through both lenses is very helpful and efficient, I think.
Yeah, and I think if we kind of pivot and talk about where the synergies are, so I'll tell you that since General Stanton came on board, we hold one ops and intel update for both organizations, right? We do that weekly at minimum. The other side of that is a lot of times when there's a JFHQ DODIN requirement for data, right? To your point earlier, JFHQ DODIN can leverage DISA, our expertise, the tools, the sensors, the capabilities that we have in order to provide that data set. Right? And sometimes that could be a litmus test for how is that going to go across the rest of the department. Other times, DISA and DODIN are really partnered at the hip in terms of identifying the data source that's needed, the sensor suite that's capable of delivering that, and then in tandem going out, DISA deploying that, and then reaching back into DODIN to understand what data sets they're seeing and how to correlate that and what that means for our environment as well as the rest of the department.
If you guys get to hear General Stanton talk later this week, I just want you to do a tick mark for every time he says data. The power of what we're able to do because of his knowledge of data has been extremely fun, I think, over the past year.
Yes. I always like being in meetings with General Stanton when we start talking data science because it is without a doubt his sweet spot. And I like making, I don't know if Steve Wallace is here, but I like seeing our CTO squirm a little bit when he challenges himself. Okay, so to the point on synergy, right? You will hear General Stanton probably talk a little bit later about his 4 core priorities.
Yep.
Importantly, and we're going to hit on each of them here, they are the same for the command as they are for DISA as an agency. Again, very intentional on his part, signaling the synergy between those 2 organizations. The first one of those priorities is readiness. And so, General Blackwell, I wonder if you could just talk from the DODIN lens what readiness might mean, and then I'll certainly add in from the DISA perspective.
Absolutely, and I think what's fascinating the way that General Stanton gave us those 4 priorities, as Mr. Barnhurst talked about, they're the same priorities for each organization, even though we're going to implement it differently, and you're going to hear that. So from a readiness perspective, yes, I do care about the readiness of the men and women in my headquarters. That is one element, but my job is also readiness of the entire DODIN. And for this audience, I will also argue it's your readiness industry. For one example, one of the industries in this audience, when we did our core inspections, we had to disconnect you from one of your sites, the Defense Industrial Base, that connection that you had, and it was through a sponsor. Let's say in this case the sponsor was Army. We disconnected you because you failed that readiness inspection. 3 weeks later, we disconnected another one of your sites with a different sponsor because in that case you weren't ready. 2 weeks later, we disconnected another one of your sites. So industry, I beg you, don't wait for us to come to you and say, you are failing our readiness inspections. As an industry, I would have hoped that you would have stepped back and seen it from a broader view of you are failing at readiness engagement that you have with us at each of those levels. So that's one aspect of readiness. The other one, and you kind of heard it talk about a little bit, is I'm assuming that we have CSSPs in the audience. The readiness of your CSSP is also extremely important. We rely on that CSSP to be able to do security and defense of the DODIN. If you are stretching your CSSP too far and they are not in a proper readiness posture where they can defend the DODIN, then we are going to all collectively fail. So those are some readiness elements, again, just applied to this context. But I know from a DISA perspective, you also apply readiness a little bit differently.
Sure, and I think at the macro level, very similar, right? But bottom line, sort of when we talk readiness, we're looking at our military workforce, our civilian workforce, and our industry partners, right? And whether they know and understand their key responsibilities for whatever mission set they're supporting, understand how those responsibilities then align with mission priorities, and how they therefore can contribute to the overall success of the agency as we're delivering for the department. One of the things that I think is key, and General Blackwell, you touched on this, the adversary doesn't distinguish between government infrastructure and private industry, right? The attack surface to them is all fair game. And so you're going to hear this consistent theme of whether we call it C2 with industry, or readiness with industry, of we've got to be side by side, sort of paired at the hip with the same site picture so that we can not just react to what the adversary might be doing in a conflict, but also be proactive in order to prepare for that. So that's what readiness means for us inside the agency. From a workforce perspective also, one of the things we've done is we've tried to put emphasis on providing certain career tracks, right? So that folks can see themselves, from the folks that General Lawrence mentioned that we want to bring in at a young age, right? All the way up their career track to whatever it is they want to do in the department at a more senior level, and what they might need to do to be successful in doing that. Second priority?
Continuous
campaigning.
modernization. Yep. So continuous modernization. This one for Joint Force Headquarters DODIN is a little bit unique because unlike DISA, I don't procure things. From a continuous modernization perspective, General Stanton's number 2 priority, really for me, I think one of the biggest things is what I'll call the sensing kill chain. And I say kill chain because I need to get those sensors. I need to make sure that I'm capturing the right data based on my operational requirements. I need to make sure I transmit that. So what is that pipe? I need to send it to a big data platform. I need to be able to run analytics on that data so that the decision makers can make decisions. So making sure that we continuously modernize our sensing structure across the DODIN and bring that data into one place where we can run those analytics is absolutely critical for Joint Force Headquarters DODIN.
Yeah, and I think from a DISA perspective, continuous modernization for an agency that delivers technology solutions, right, is a must-have. We know we've got too much legacy in the environment, right? We've got to root that out. We've partnered with the DoD CIO and with others in order to make that a point of emphasis. Things like legacy TDM are not only increasing cyber risk, right, but with all you guys, that's a not supported technology anymore. It increases costs, and when it increases costs, it means that's a dollar that we can't spend on leaping forward, right? So rooting out legacy is absolutely part of that equation. But then jumping forward to things like I just talked about earlier to open the session, the implementation of something like Thunderdome, where we set a vision for where we need to be years down the road, right? And we implement new technologies, we integrate them together, working with you as partners in order to deliver for the department. So, you know, when we think about continuous modernization, it is both sides of that equation, reducing legacy and then freeing up dollars to invest in the new so that we can make the only man-made warfighting domain what we want it to be, right? The third one I'm going to jump to is campaigning.
Campaigning.
Over
Okay,
to DODIN.
so I have really enjoyed, and you'll hear me talk about this in the next priority too, but for this priority, I'll just mention how fun it is for me to work with different services. I love being in a joint environment. In this case, I get to work for an Army 3-star, so I've learned all kind of Army terms from wet gap crossing to L-shaped ambush to you name it. But from a campaigning perspective, he's also taught us about mission threat analysis. And so we are focusing on how do we lift our heads up instead of continuing to be just reactive in current ops modes of the adversary, being in contact with the adversary every day, lifting our heads up and looking a little bit farther out. So I'll use the example of the Global Logistics Mission Thread, which has been one of our priorities through Cyber Command and General Stanton. I mention it in this audience because about 80% of that Global Logistics Mission Thread, meaning how do I get troops from their fort all the way through a port, all the way through into the Indo-Pacific theater. 80% of that relies on you, industry. Whether it is railway stations, whether it's ports, whether it's even air. So Mr. Barnhurst mentioned it a little bit earlier, command and control with industry. I do see too, for my forces that are assigned to me, but with industry, we need to be able to help to do command and control with you along those mission threads. So how do we do deliberate campaigning to make sure that we build a relationship with you prior, because I want you to know that you are critical to that mission thread, so that when we do actually have to execute that, we are on the same page. We are in a collective ops center. I don't know. We don't have the answers on how to do that. But how do we do C2 with you along that campaigning mission thread? So again, I have many, many examples, but I'll stop there. Maybe you'll ask us some questions later, or you can ask us about Star Wars, either one.
Sounds good. Okay, so campaigning from DISA perspective, right? Not dissimilar. The thing I would add is we think about it from the perspective of combatant command priorities, right? And so the way that General Stan would describe this is the proactive planning that we do with the combatant commands, leveraging our embedded field offices and field commands in doing so, right? So for those of you who may not be tracking, talked about global organization earlier, we've got field offices, field commands embedded with each combatant command across the globe. Those are our eyes and ears into the combatant commander's priorities, the J6, the J3 priorities, and we are putting more and more emphasis as an agency on leveraging those resources for not just being our eyes and ears, but also being more of a operational function at kind of the forward edge going forward. And as we think about campaigning with those priorities in mind, one of the things that we will always come back to is keeping in mind the coalition partnerships that we have to have in order to fight and win. So when we talk to pretty much any combatant command, one of the things that comes up as a point of emphasis is Providing services to them is good. Providing services to them that they can leverage with their coalition partners is better and desired. To that end, one of the things we've done inside the agency, we've established a governance structure around this process so that we can bring prioritized requirements in from the field, expose that to the DISA senior leadership team, and then influence our acquisition processes, our programmatic planning, and how we set a demand signal to you all in industry in alignment with the combatant commander's priorities so that that takes precedent over everything else within the agency. Okay, finally, last priority of the 4, lethality.
Establishing lethality. Again, I talked a little bit about some of those Army terms. This is another good example of where General Stanton has really pushed us to change our cultural mindset. In the past, it was, again, we're in contact with the adversary every day. In many cases, you know what, we're just going to block them at the internet access point, and we're done. That is not good enough in today's day and age. That is not good enough for the sophistication of the adversary that is trying to get into our DODIN. So how do we build engagement areas? How do we deliberately develop defenses? We can use some of DISA's access points as an example. How do I develop a deliberate defense around some of those key cyber terrain so that I can see the adversary coming in? Maybe I don't block the adversary. Maybe I let them come into that engagement area. I monitor them. I watch what they're doing. I watch their TTPs. I watch what they're going after. And then I block them. Or then I create conditions for offensive cyber. And that, again, that is not something that we normally do in defense. Not normally thinking about how do I create conditions to hand this adversary over to my other counterparts within Cyber Command to say, Cyber National Mission Force, over to you. Again, that is enhancing lethality using DODIN. This is our battle space. We are battle space owners. How do we shape the DOD's information network to impose costs on the adversary? That is where General Stanton is trying to push us with that last priority.
Yeah, and I think as a combat support agency, right, there's not a single mission in the Department of Defense that occurs without DISA and the DISN/DODIN playing some role. Right? Whether that's an AISR mission overseas, whether that's ballistic missile defense, whether that's securing the border, right? All of those things have a nexus and a reliance on DISA key terrain. And I think when we talk about establishing lethality, we're talking about decision superiority, right? We want the right data to get to the right place at the right time for a commander to make an operationally relevant decision.
The boss is going to be so proud that you quoted him. I mean, he said that many times. That was great.
That or he's going to say I have to rewrite that bullet. But, but I'll use a somewhat personal example just to illustrate this. So my grandfather was a forward artillery observer in World War II. He didn't share a lot of stories, but he did share one in particular where he was obviously deployed forward and could see the enemy forward artillery observer basically seeing his position at the same time that he saw their position. And what he conveyed to me was there were 2 things that kept him alive in World War II. One was the ability to read maps, and 2 was the ability to process data faster than the enemy. And so in that particular case, he won the battle, right? He processed the coordinates and the data that was relevant to bring fire down on the enemy position. He survived, right? I fast forward to today's environment, not a dissimilar problem set, but the speed of all of that is much, much faster, right? And so the role that we as a combat support agency play in supporting lethality is critical, right? Because lives ultimately will depend on it in a time of conflict. Okay. I'm going to jump to the role of data, if that's all right.
Ooh, let's do it.
And maybe have a bit of a discussion there, and then we'll leave a few minutes, if that's okay with you guys, and we'll take some questions.
Well, yeah, because they have to ask questions so they get their, what is it, continuing education points?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, so how does JFHQ DODIN and Cyber Command view the role of data, and where do you see that going in the near future here?
It's absolutely critical, and I want to point out the fact that Mr. Barnhurst started with how do you see the role of data versus how do you see the role of AI? Because I think in many cases, a lot of people just try to jump to artificial intelligence and sprinkle a little bit of that on it and think that we're done. But if we don't do the hard work of getting our arms around the right data so we can put it to the right place at the right time, I was trying to build on your quote, then we are going to fail. General Stanton has pushed us hard to make sure that we identify the data that we need, whether that's at the endpoint, at the base boundary, or at the internet access point, whether that's in the Defense Commissary Agency, NRO, or Air Force. I need specific data to be able to see the adversary, and I need it in a specific place so that I can run some analytics on it. We have recently been able to show the power of those analytics and the visualization that we are able to provide to the commander of Cyber Command, being able to actually visualize this battle space, show him where there were some risks across this terrain, be able to connect that risk to a mission, and target our limited resources to fixing that risky area on the DODIN. But it all starts with the data and getting that data to the right place at the right time so that we can make a decision. Data is absolutely critical.
So you'll see some of the synergies here, I think, in how we talk about this. I typically talk about data in two ways. In my mind, I segment off, I'll call business intelligence data, right? Which is how are we operating? How do we see ourselves contractually, financially, manpower-wise, et cetera? And what insights can we gain to operate more efficiently so that we can go invest in the more operationally relevant capabilities? And then I think about operational data, right? So from a DISA perspective, we kind of look at that in two ways. We have data that we can leverage for performance monitoring purposes, understanding, again, ideally not using the user as a sensor. We want to see when there's a problem in the infrastructure before the 4-star or the SecDef or whoever calls. But then from a cyber defense perspective, right, we can leverage that same data to gain insight and make decisions. One of the key points that I wanted to kind of pull the thread on is this idea of mission threads, right? You heard General Blackwell talk about that from a DODIN perspective. We are also, from a DISA perspective, very interested in that because it helps us understand how certain data gets from point A to point B in order to make a mission successful. So if you think about ballistic missile defense, for example, right? What data needs to get from what sensing site to what shooter site, and how does that data traverse the network? The more of those threads that we can map, the more we can make decisions on where we need additional resiliency, right? What critical assets need more protection, et cetera. And data plays a huge role in all of that. And then, to your point, leverage some AI on top of that to gain more efficient and effective insights. And then we've got something that really can help launch the department and the agency forward. Okay, so with that, if you're okay with it, we'll open it up, we'll take some questions and see what you guys want to talk about. Sound good?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We have several questions that have come in through email, the first of which, how can DOD better leverage industry innovation cycles while maintaining cyber readiness and security?
Good.
Okay.
Did you see how I did that?
So it's a complicated question. I don't know that there's a straightforward or simple answer. What I would say is some of the more agile contracting methods that we've looked at as an agency are certainly part of how we intend on better leveraging industry, I'll say faster maybe than the normal like FAR-based acquisitions would allow us to do. So things like OTA, which I would say as an agency we've used to great effect, Thunderdome's a great example of that, allow us to bring in industry much quicker. We've also started to use different evaluation methodologies that allow us to get in a room with all of you and really talk through the context of what our requirement is, which I think in the end saves time because it helps get a meeting of the minds on the problem set we're trying to solve, and then we get a better solution where we can leverage the good innovation that you all are doing. So I'll take it from, I guess, a contracting lens of how we bring in industry support and automation faster, as an agency. Anything you want to add?
Love it.
Thank you. Next question. What are we doing to ensure that cyber professionals entering DoD have not only technical skills, but also warfighting context and operational relevance?
I will take that one. So I think that is a fantastic question because, again, we are in the profession of arms. So while I'm extremely proud to be in the cyber functional area, understanding that the readiness, my readiness and the readiness of our airmen, our soldiers, our sailors, our airmen, our Marines, our Coast Guardians spans across just that cyber functional area. So the wonderful thing about, from just a military perspective, is how we bring all of those young men and women into our service. We bring them in first as, again, whatever service they're coming in as. We teach them those basic skills. We teach them whether it's land warfare, the air domain, et cetera. Then we allow them to go into their functional area and make them professionals in that particular space. From an Air Force perspective, I know that we are also continuing to push on the fact that we need to remain agile and expeditionary. So how do I continue to teach those expeditionary communication skills to all of our communicators, our cyber warfighters out there? Because you never know when you're going to need them in that ACE environment. So again, I know I just took my joint hat off, but I think that's a great question and something we always need to remember. It is not just sitting behind a keyboard doing what we need to do, but being lethal and having that warfighter mindset applies to anything that we do as a profession of arms.
If I could just add on that, from the civilian point of view, bringing someone in out of college, let's say, right? They're not going to have that same background. And so, you know, in my experience, the mission of DOD and what we do, what Cyber Command does, right? It's intoxicating in a way, right? It gives you an opportunity to do something that you can't do elsewhere, and it exposes you to the way the government operates, right? To key mission sets in support of the nation that you don't get elsewhere. And so I think it's incumbent on all of us, certainly as leaders, to, as those folks come in, instill that sense of mission in them, right? So that they understand what it is they're supporting and how it's bigger than themselves, so that they want to be a part of the team and a part of the fight and partnering with our uniformed personnel, you know, going forward.
Hope that answered that question.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. What is the single biggest piece of advice that you have for the next generation of cyber leaders, whether military, civilian, or industry, who want to help shape this fight?
And the single biggest piece of advice that I have is understand exactly what Mr. Barnhurst and I are demonstrating today, is that we are in this fight together. If we try to do this alone, we will fail. Understand the power of those partnerships and make sure that you continue to invest in those partnerships so that we can win together.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think partnerships are the key to any, frankly, successful business. They're the key to the Department of Defense. It's what, in my view, makes us the greatest fighting force in the world, right? We have partnerships all across the department, and leveraging that and being a part of that, being a part of a team, to me, will always be better than doing anything on your own, and might as well be part of the greatest team in the world. So, appreciate it.
I will close and then give it to you, if that's okay. I always love to end with thank you. May I echo, I know that these are sometimes interesting times, and we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you continuing to invest in the defense of our nation. I also do a call to action. As you develop the tools that you're developing, or the sensing platforms, or even the data standards, please keep in mind that the security of those things has got to be baked in from the very beginning. And please keep in mind that the kaleidoscope across the DOD, the DODIN, is different industry. So make sure that you understand the power of the partnerships and what we have to do to command and control. Again, I appreciate you being here and everything you do for our nation's defense. Sir?
Yeah, I'll just finish by saying the environment that we operate in is massively complex, right? I don't probably need to say that to you guys. You I think, know that. But because of that complexity, I'll hammer it again, the partnership between DISA and JFHQ DODIN, the partnership we have with you guys in industry, right, are critical to us delivering what the warfighter ultimately needs downrange to be successful. So I thank everyone for being here. It's going to be a great event. I know we've got a lot of good theater sessions in store, and look forward to talking with you more as the event goes on. Thanks, everyone.
Please welcome General Lawrence back to the stage to thank our speakers.
Successfully stop them for you all. I have served with General Stanton for many, many years, and I know he will be extremely proud of the message that Mr. Barnhurst and General Blackwell delivered today. You were right on target with his vision and his strategy, so thank you so much for kicking us off. In lieu of a speaker gift, we're going to make a donation to the Fisher House in your names, so thank you again very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the opening keynote sessions. You can see a brief summary of the upcoming schedule on the screens at the side of the stage. And please download the TechNet Cyber app because we are fast changing our schedule. For those of you with lunch tickets, we'll be serving lunch buffet style in the back of the exhibit hall starting at 11:30. Lunch will be served over the 2-hour period so you can maximize your networking time and your time out on the floor. I'd like to, first of all, recognize Sienna and Lumen for your support today with this session and for lunch. Thank you so much, sir, for all your support. Okay, team, enjoy your break with coffee provided by SuperTech, and we'll see you back here in 15 minutes for the Zero Trust panel led by Randy Resnick. Thank you so much.